See, there's something within us that wants to leave a legacy. But here's the thing you need to know is if God asks you to do something, don't look at the size of the job, look at the size of your God who asked you to do it. See, he laid down his life for you, so that tells me that you are not worthless, you are worthy. And this is what he wants to rewrite into your story. That reality impacts everything.
Hey, small groups. I am thrilled that you are with us for week 1 of Say What. And this whole series is really about looking at the shocking statements, shocking events, shocking things that happened in Jesus' life and how those shocking events impacted the disciples in that day, as well as how it impacts our lives today. I kind of opened with this story about my son, Brooks. He's 4 years old, about how this week I walked downstairs. It was the morning and he starts, he's in jammy shorts and he starts putting on a coat and flip-flops. I go, Brooks, where are you going? He goes, I go outside to play sticks. And this is what I said this weekend is sticks is exactly what it sounds like. It is picking up sticks and running around the yard with sticks. That's all it is. And it was a morning and it was pretty brisk. And I told him, I was like, Brooks, it is going to be cold out there. You're in shorts, flip-flops. It is going to shock you when you walk outside. And he just was determined, and he goes on outside in his shorts and flip-flops. And sure enough, within 5 minutes, he's coming back inside and he goes, it's cold, it's cold. And I'm like, I told you. And he was just, it was shocking to him because it was different than what he expected. And this whole series is about these shocking things that Jesus said, probably different than what the disciples were expecting to come out of the mouth of the Messiah, or different than what they thought was going to unfold in their story. I talked about 2 shocking elements this weekend. One is the shocking event of the resurrection, and then we really spent the most of our time looking at this shocking story that Jesus told. But in terms of the resurrection, here's what I simply said about the resurrection. It was this, that the resurrection, we don't believe in the resurrection because the Bible tells us so. We actually believe in the resurrection because of the eyewitnesses' account of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, James, Peter, the Apostle Paul, all these people who had a face-to-face encounter with Jesus. It's because of their lives and how they responded after Christ's resurrection that is compelling to us to say this was a legitimate event in history. Because are you aware? We always think about the cross or the crucifixion on Friday night. It probably wasn't a Friday night, but we always picture it as Friday and Sunday's coming, that type of thing. But let's just imagine it was on Friday. Friday night, they're all running. They're all scattering. No one is going to be with Jesus and following him. It's kind of like they're saying, this was a good run while it lasted, but now it's over. And then something happens that changes these guys' lives in such a profound way that they all rally around the message that Jesus is the Messiah, the Savior of the world. In fact, going all the way to the place where they're all willing to lay down their lives for it. If this was just a hoax that they came up with, an idea that they said, let's tell people that he rose from the dead, I promise you they would not have gone to their deaths as they were being tortured for this belief. They wouldn't have gone that far. And so really, if you ever want to think about people who want to disprove the resurrection, they really need to disprove Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, James, Peter, Paul, and all these eyewitness accounts, because that is what our resurrection story really rests on. And maybe just in your small groups, here's something to consider is what's difficult, if anything, to believe about the event of the resurrection. And then here's just another question for you. The resurrection changed the entire trajectory of these disciples' lives. How does the resurrection change yours and my trajectory of our lives? Then I shifted to looking at really a shocking story that Jesus told. And we looked at the story of the prodigal son. And let me just highlight some of these elements. I want to encourage you in your small groups to read Luke chapter 15. But here's kind of these shocking elements. It's a story of a son who requests his inheritance early. That's really would have been shocking. A son who wastes the inheritance on wild living. A son who finds his life crashing around him and actually longing to get the food that he's feeding to the pigs. A son who decides to take a huge risk and go home. And then a father who responds in a crazy, grace-filled way. And the pinnacle of that story really is found in verse 20, where it says this, he got up and he went to his father. This is talking about the son. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, he threw his arms around him, and he kissed him. And in it, the point is, as Jesus says all this, the audience, quite frankly, is shocked. They're shocked at, and they're thinking this father's crazy, it's undignified, it's unruly, it's unheard of that someone would be received like that after doing such a horrible thing, like walking out, wasting your father's inheritance and walking away from the community and the family. And as Jesus really did the same thing for us at the cross. It was crazy, it was undignified, it was unruly, and it was unheard of that he would do such an amazing, grace-filled thing for us, offer us grace as he laid down his life for us. And it doesn't matter really how you got here. God is simply offering a shocking gift to us, and that is to come home and be called sons and daughters. And I ended the morning by having us all kind of do this pointing thing, and just ask the question, where are you going? Like, what's the direction you find yourself going in? You know, the son found himself going away from the father, then he found himself going toward the world, then he found himself going toward a complete crash, then he finally found himself deciding to say, I'm going to go in this direction, to go home. And I asked the question, where's the direction? Where are you choosing to point your life right now? And where are you going? If you're honest with yourself, are you finding yourself walking away from God, pursuing something from this world? Can you see the writing on the wall? Does it seem like your life is heading toward a crash? Or are you saying, no, right now I am really purposing to point my life in a direction where I'm going toward God and I'm pursuing walking with him, in relationship with him? I know for me, there have been times when I've wandered away from God. And I know you might be like, really? Yeah, I mean, we all sin. We all at times find ourselves distant from the Lord or feeling distant from the Lord. And I just want to be honest with you about something that I found that I've told myself. Like, I believe this lie and I've told myself this thing that I can't go back to him yet. Like, when I have blown it or when I've wandered away from the Lord, it's not that the Lord is not ready to receive me. At least this is me personally. I've often benched myself and said, I'm not worthy to go back home yet. And so I've made myself kind of sit on the outside and say, God's not ready to take me back. Or if I pay penance of some way on the outside for a little while and yet live righteously without sin for like a week, then I can go back into the presence of my Father. Then I can go back home. And what a foolish attitude and mindset that is, to kind of penalize ourselves or to say, I can't go back home yet, when really the whole story is how the Father is actually scanning the horizon, looking for rebellious or even just wandering kids who are ready to come home. And so in your small groups, maybe just talk about this. Where are you pointing right now? What's the direction of your life or where is the direction of your life going? And are there times that you don't allow yourself to go back home to God? And then why is that? I imagine you're going to have some good conversations just around these kind of shocking realities and shocking stories of the resurrection and this prodigal son story. But I pray that you guys have a great conversation as you encourage one another and as you hopefully point your lives saying, let's go home, let's go to him, let's seek after him. Have a great conversation. We'll see you guys next week.